So, George, you published a piece recently arguing that the 2020s, so the next couple of years, are going to mirror, maybe in some important ways, the transformative impact of the 1980s nonprofit boom, when thousands of nonprofits were created to meet the moment, a drop off in social services, austerity measures in the country. However, you note there's going to be some crucial differences. So, George, you assert that there's going to be three drivers for this growth: government restructuring. The Trump people get rid of the Department of Education, might have some repercussions. A workforce transformation, now that we're incorporating AI into our workflows and we have lots of digital talent over kind of corporate professionalism. And George, you also note an unprecedented capital surge, including the oncoming 84 trillion wealth transfer and the unprecedented 234 billion held in DAFs. So those drivers, you argue, will lead to increased fundraising capacity for nonprofit organizations, albeit in a consolidated way. We're not increasing the number of organizations, but perhaps the amount of resources getting funneled in a little bit more narrow, but still important, funneled into particular organizations working in specific cause spaces. George, I want to give you a chance to talk about how you view the next couple years based on historical trends.
It really struck me when you look at the history of nonprofits. It is no small thing, a doubling of a sector effectively in terms of number of organizations inside of a decade. And you need multiple factors. And I don't want to pin it, and I couldn't just pin it all on Reagan era cuts to public funding sector and policy, actually. And the three factors, you mapped them perfectly, I think are all in alignment again. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I'm seeing those pieces. So now what? If you know that there is a wave coming, you should get your surfboard. If you know that actually it may not be the breadth necessarily this time of sort of number of new organizations being created, like pretty amazing, a doubling, that's not where I see it. It is not breadth, but depth this time. I think for increased funding, responsibility, and growth that is going to happen in the nonprofit sector as, frankly, you begin to deal with the repercussions of a mandate to remove, for better or worse, the social fabric and support that our government offers, included, not limited to, the education department and other societal support systems that are in place. Go down the list. And as you go down the list, we have a tool on CauseWriter, the Project 2025 Consultant. So assuming that this is a rough playbook for what may be cut, what might be prioritized and deprioritized, you can put in your organization and key details, and this consultant will go through that document. It'll go through that, pull out those pieces and say, hey, you should pay attention to this, this, and this. And then you can also use that as part of your narrative. This, just to repeat, is going to be a phenomenal period of growth for the nonprofit sector. And I think build in longer term, far more sustainable and reliable infrastructure, societal support systems that will be picked up. So again, you have the style of Reagan era cuts where there is going to be capacity that needs to be filled for social impact work and societal constructs that make sure the bottom portion of society doesn't fall through and get lost. You've got increased, and this happened again for the talent that migrated into the sector and the formalization of processes as organizations grew in the 1980s. We have that with AI now. And then that wealth transfer that, frankly, it takes money to do this stuff. And yes, the government's probably going to be shifting into, hey, we'll just pay you all to do this. We're going to issue more RFPs, but also the greatest wealth transfer in history. So paying attention to the ways that you're interacting with your DAF, donor advised fund outreach, as well as planned giving. And Tony Martignetti is the guy to look up on the planned giving front. If that's not part of your strategy right now, stop listening to this and go check out Tony Martignetti for that type of thinking.
Yeah, George, I think that's a great perspective, bringing in some of those historical trends. I want to counter that a little bit with, I think, a more critical.
Hold on. Let me just, it's the plannedgivingaccelerator.com, plannedgivingaccelerator.com. This is not a paid placement, Tony. This one's free. The next one will cost you.